Welcome to Sleepy Night History. When we hear the word pirate, a very particular image often comes to mind. We picture a daring figure with a colorful parrot perched on the shoulder, a weathered treasure map tucked away, and a sword gleaming in hand. It conjures visions of thrilling adventures, boundless freedom, and wooden chests overflowing with gold coins hidden on deserted islands. But the reality of piracy during its famed Golden Age in the early 1700s was far from this romantic vision. For most, it was a path taken out of desperation, an escape from the brutal, near-slave-like conditions endured aboard merchant vessels or within the king's navy. Life at sea was often defined by monotony, illness, and relentless labor, occasionally shattered by sudden moments of peril. Tonight, we will set aside the legends and uncover what life was truly like. We will step onto the crowded wooden decks and explore the surprising democratic rules that guided pirate crews. We will examine the meager food they lived on, the fears they endured, and the reasons so many ordinary men chose a short, perilous existence under the black flag rather than a long but miserable life in service to a king. So now, let the clamor of the modern world fade away. Let us journey back to a time of twisted rope, black powder, and the endless expanse of the sea. And our story begins, not with a pirate, but with an ordinary man. This story begins with an ordinary person. Imagine that you are this person, not a hero, not a villain, just a young sailor in your early 20s. Your entire world is this small, damp wooden ship, creaking its way across the vast, empty Atlantic. Exhaustion grips you even before dawn. You were roused not by a gentle shake, but by the sharp bark of the boatswain, the senior sailor in charge of the deck crew. Your hands are raw and blistered, the skin repeatedly torn and hardened from hauling the coarse, salt-stiffened ropes that control the massive sails above. The air is cold and thick with the sting of salt spray, seeping into your bones. Every muscle in your back and shoulders aches from relentless labor, each day a repeat of the one before, stretching on for 6 long months since leaving port in Bristol. This is life aboard a merchant vessel in 1716. Adventure is nowhere to be found. Only unending, backbreaking work. You and the few dozen other men on board form a tiny human island in an endless ocean. Your duties never cease. Adjusting the rigging, climbing high into the masts on swaying ropes to furl or unfurl sails, with only the churning sea below, pumping out foul, stagnant water seeping into the hull, scrubbing decks, mending sails, tarring ropes. Day after day, under blistering sun or freezing rain, the labor continues. And for all this toil, you are paid a mere pittance, if you are paid at all. Wages on a merchant ship are not guaranteed until the voyage's end. If the ship sinks, you earn nothing. If disease or accident strikes, your family receives nothing. Even surviving the journey does not ensure justice. A captain with absolute authority can fabricate fines, deducting from your hard-earned pay for a misplaced tool, a perceived moment of laziness, or mere dislike. You have witnessed men work tirelessly for a year, only to leave with a few shillings, just enough for a drunken night before signing on to another voyage and repeating the cycle. The food is no better. Daily rations consist of hardtack, a biscuit of flour, water, and salt, harder than wood, requiring soaking to chew. Infested with weevils, it is only slightly less unpleasant than the salted beef and pork, months old and saturated with salt, needing hours of soaking before it can be swallowed. The water, stored in wooden casks, quickly turns stagnant and green. A diet devoid of fresh fruits and vegetables inevitably brings scurvy. You have seen men suffer, bleeding gums, falling teeth, reopened wounds, confusion, all from a lack of basic nutrition. Above all looms the fear of punishment. A merchant ship captain rules like a king over his floating realm. The cat o' nine tails, a whip with knotted lashes, can transform a man's back into a ruin of bleeding flesh for the smallest offense. Disagreeing with an officer, moving too slowly aloft, or merely falling out of the captain's favor is enough to warrant a flogging. No trial, no appeal. Only the sharp sting of leather and searing pain. Yet you are fortunate, in a sense. You chose this life. Many sailors in the King's Navy did not. Pressed into service, kidnapped from port streets or captured at sea, they faced the same brutal labor, harsher discipline, and the constant terror of death in naval battles. explosions, cannon fire, and wooden splinters tearing through their world. This is your reality. Ceaseless work, meager food, stolen wages, and arbitrary, brutal punishment. Your future stretches before you as a cycle of miserable voyages until the sea or sickness claims you. Piracy, then, is not a romantic notion. To you, it exists only as a whisper, a rumor, a story told quietly by fellow sailors. Dangerous, yes, but a different path altogether. Then one gray morning, squinting at the horizon, you see it. A strange sail, a swift ship moving with unnerving speed toward your vessel. It flies no colors you recognize. Around you, the crew murmurs, faces paling with fear, aware of what might be approaching. And yet, buried beneath the dread, a different feeling stirs within you. A small, dangerous spark of curiosity and anticipation. The approaching ship slices through the waves with a purpose your own vessel cannot match. The ship approaching lacks the bulk of your merchant vessel. It is a sloop, smaller, faster, and far more nimble than your lumbering ship. You notice it is crowded with men, far more than necessary for a simple trading voyage. Your captain shouts orders, his voice tight with fear, while your fellow sailors move with a panicked energy. Then the moment of truth arrives. A puff of white smoke bursts from the side of the sloop. A second later, a deep boom echoes across the water, and a cannonball skips just in front of your ship's bow. It is a warning shot, a universal signal on the high seas. Stop, or the next shot will not be a warning. Your captain knows the truth. His ship is slower, his crew smaller, and his few cannons are no match for a determined pirate crew. To fight would be suicide. With his cargo insured by wealthy merchants in London and his own life unprotected, he orders the colors struck, your ship's flag lowered in surrender. Tension on deck shifts from panic to grim, fearful resignation. The pirates skillfully maneuver alongside, and with the crash of grappling hooks and ropes, the two ships are bound together. They board with precision, not a chaotic mob, but a confident, organized team. As they spill over the railing, you see now that these are sailors just like you. Their faces are weathered by sun and sea. Their hands bear the calluses of a lifetime on ropes. But there is a difference. They move with a freedom and confidence you have never witnessed on a merchant vessel. Each man is armed, a pistol at the belt, a sword at the side. They quickly disarm your ship's officers and gather your crew on the main deck. Heart pounding, you brace for violence. But none comes immediately. Instead, a man steps forward, clearly in charge, yet not the captain. He is the quartermaster. On a pirate ship, he is second in command, representing the crew's interests, handling discipline, and distributing plunder. Often, he wields more day-to-day authority than the captain. His voice is calm and direct. He assures your crew that no harm will come to ordinary sailors. Their target is the cargo, and anyone willing to join them. He lays out the choice. Remain with your captain, continuing the same life of misery and poverty, or leave it all behind to join the pirates, becoming a free man entitled to an equal share of every prize they take. You glance at your crewmates. Fear dominates most. They have families, homes, and a dread of the hangman's noose. But a few, like you, have little to lose. You see the same spark of longing for freedom in their eyes that burns in your own chest. The choice is yours. These pirates do not seek unwilling captives. They want brothers who will fight beside them willingly. In that moment, you weigh your life. The guaranteed suffering of backbreaking work, spoiled food, and the lash, versus the promise of plunder, freedom, and respect. One path offers long misery. The other, a life likely short, but entirely your own. You and two other sailors step forward. The quartermaster grins and gestures for you to cross over to the pirate ship. As you climb over the railing, leaving your old vessel and your past life behind, a pirate hands you a tin mug filled with a cloudy alcoholic drink. It is grog, a mixture of watered-down rum, sometimes with lime or sugar, the lifeblood of sailors everywhere. But this mug tastes different. It tastes of freedom. Your former ship, now lighter by a few crew and a hold full of cargo, sails away. You stand on the deck of a pirate vessel, surrounded by those once called the enemies of all mankind. You are one of them now. Initial relief begins to fade, replaced by a pressing new reality. You have joined their society, but you do not yet know its laws. You stand on the deck of your new ship, the taste of grog lingering on your lips, ready to learn the ways of a pirate crew. The taste of grog still lingers on your lips. The initial rush of adrenaline and relief has faded, replaced by a quiet uncertainty. You have escaped the tyranny of your old captain, but what exactly have you joined? How can a ship full of men who have rejected all authority possibly function without falling into chaos? The answer becomes clear shortly after. The quartermaster, the man who welcomed you aboard, gathers the new recruits. He unrolls a sheet of worn parchment. This, he explains, forms the foundation of their society, the ship's Articles of Agreement, more commonly known as the Pirate Code. You quickly realize this is not a set of rules imposed from above. There is no absolute king here. Before each voyage, the crew gathers together to debate, argue, and vote on every rule written on this page. Every man, from the captain to the newest recruit, has an equal say. The captain is elected and can be removed by a majority vote if the crew is dissatisfied with his leadership. You have not simply joined a ship, you have joined a floating democratic republic, a concept so radical that it takes a moment to grasp fully. The quartermaster begins reading key articles aloud to ensure you understand the contract you are about to sign. First, and most important, every man has an equal vote. Any major decision, whether to attack a ship, where to sail next, or how to handle punishments, is decided collectively by the crew. Second, no prey, no pay. There are no wages. Your earnings come solely from the plunder, divided according to clear rules. The captain may receive 2 shares, the quartermaster 1.5, and skilled specialists like the surgeon or carpenter may get slightly larger portions. You, as a regular sailor, are entitled to 1 full share, no deductions, no tricks. What is yours is guaranteed. Third, conduct rules. Any quarrel between 2 men must be settled ashore with pistols or swords to prevent disruptive fighting aboard the crowded ship. No women are allowed, a rule meant to prevent jealousy and conflict. Every man is expected to keep his weapons clean and ready at all times. Fourth, lights out at 8 o'clock. This is not a bedtime rule, it is fire safety. After this hour, no open flames are permitted from candles or lamps, whether for gambling, drinking, or anything else. On a wooden ship filled with barrels of gunpowder and twisted ropes, a single careless flame could doom everyone. Finally, perhaps the most surprising article, a system of compensation for injuries sustained in battle, a form of insurance. A man who loses a right arm might receive 600 pieces of 8, the common Spanish silver coin of the seas. The loss of a leg might be worth 500 pieces of 8, and an additional 100 for other injuries. This money comes from the ship's treasury before the rest of the plunder is divided, a promise that your brothers will care for you, offering a level of respect unimaginable on your old merchant ship. After reading the articles, the quartermaster places the parchment atop a barrel. He looks at you and the other new men. To join the brotherhood, you must sign. You take the offered quill, dip it in ink, and make your mark. By doing so, you enter a sacred contract, agreeing to live by these rules, fight for your brothers, and accept severe punishments for breaking your oath. You have now formally sworn allegiance. You are a full member of the crew, with a vote and a share in any prize. You are part of a society of outlaws governed by surprisingly fair and orderly laws. But a society is more than just rules. It is also the physical space it occupies. With the formalities complete, you take your first proper look around, seeing the ship not just as a vessel, but as a home, a fortress, and a floating community all in one. You are no longer a captive, you are a resident. This is your home now, the very sloop that so easily overtook your old vessel. Its size now makes sense. Not a massive warship, but lean, fast, and deadly. A captured merchant ship, transformed from a simple workhorse into a predator of the sea lanes. Your new crew has already made modifications. More cannons line the deck than any merchant ship would carry, their black iron muzzles staring from newly cut gun ports. Clutter has been cleared to make room for fighting. The vessel has been hardened for combat. Walking the main deck, you take in the controlled chaos. Thick coils of rope are neatly stowed. Pyramids of iron cannonballs are secured with netting. Spare spars, the long wooden poles that support sails, are lashed to the sides, ready to replace any broken in storms or battle. You close your eyes, listening. The deep groan of the timbers echoes like an old man's sigh. Waves lap rhythmically against the hull, a sound that will accompany you day and night. Above, sails snap sharply as they catch the wind, and the lonely cry of a seabird punctuates the air. It is a symphony of wood, wind, and water. The smells are just as vivid, the sharp scent of salt spray, mixed with the pungent, almost medicinal aroma of tar used to waterproof the wood and ropes. Yet the heart of the ship lies below deck. Descending into the gloom, you are enveloped by thick, warm, heavy air. This is the 'tween deck, the main living quarters. There are no private cabins, no walls or doors. This single low-ceilinged space houses 80 other men. Rows of hammocks are slung from overhead beams, hung so closely that you can touch the man next to you. Hammocks are a brilliant innovation, borrowed from the native peoples of the Americas. Unlike fixed bunks or simple mattresses, a hammock sways with the ship, cradling you and preventing you from being thrown to the wet floor during rough seas. The air here is a complex mixture of smells: unwashed bodies, stale rum, damp wool, and something fouler. That foul, sour odor comes from the bilge, the very bottom of the hull, where leaking seawater, spilled food, drink, and waste slosh back and forth in a putrid mixture. Its presence is constant, permeating the wood itself. This is the defining scent of your new home. On this vessel, there is no privacy. You eat, work, and sleep within arm's reach of 80 to 100 men. You now understand why the ship's articles strictly prohibit fighting on board. In such close quarters, minor disagreements could quickly escalate into dangerous violence if not managed. Finding an empty space between two cannons, you are shown how to hang your hammock. Lying back in the gently swaying canvas, you listen to the symphony of the ship: creaking wood, snoring men, distant waves. You are surrounded by this new family. You know the rules. You know the layout. Yet one question remains. What exactly do you do all day? You awaken to the gentle rocking of your hammock. Darkness surrounds you, but the sounds of men stirring signal that your first full day as a pirate is about to begin. The question that lingered in your mind as you fell asleep, "What do you actually do all day?" is about to be answered. Quickly, you learn that a pirate's life is far from one of idle leisure, waiting for a prize to appear. A pirate ship is a complex machine that demands constant attention. Your existence at sea revolves around the watch system. The crew is divided into two halves, each on duty for a 4-hour shift before being relieved by the other half in an unending cycle. There are no weekends, no days off, only the watch. During your time on duty, the work is both familiar and different from what you knew before. The most important task is sailing the ship. You and your watchmates are constantly trimming sails, pulling ropes to adjust their angles to catch the wind most efficiently. It is a delicate, ongoing conversation between crew, sails, and wind. Yet most work is maintenance, endless, repetitive, but vital. Hours are spent corking, hammering sticky tarred rope fibers, called oakum, into the seams between the wooden planks of deck and hull. Though slow and tedious, this keeps the ship from taking on water and sinking. Other days, you coat the rigging with tar, scrubbing and preserving the ropes from the relentless sun and salt spray. Decks are scoured not just for cleanliness, but to remove slippery green algae. Cannons are checked, mechanisms cleaned, and nearby gunpowder stores kept perfectly dry. Sometimes, you climb high into the crow's nest, a small wooden platform atop the main mast. From here, you are the eyes of the ship, scanning a 360 degrees panorama of endless blue for another sail. It is a lonely, hypnotic duty, performed for hours at a time. When your 4-hour watch ends, another half of the crew relieves you. But your time off is not truly restful. You must eat your rations, sleep to regain strength, and perform personal maintenance, sharpening knives, mending clothes, or washing garments in seawater. After long labor, sleep is often overwhelming. The work itself resembles that on your old merchant ship, yet everything feels different. No officer screams insults. No whip threatens punishment. The men cooperate with quiet efficiency because this ship is theirs. A well-maintained vessel sails faster and is more likely to catch a prize. A clean cannon fires true when needed. You are not working out of fear. You are working toward a shared goal. You are a shareholder in this venture, and your labor directly affects your own potential fortune. The mood is lighter, conversations flow more freely. You are treated as an equal, a brother. Days blend into one another, marked only by the changing watch and the sun's movement. The rhythm of work, eat, sleep, work becomes your entire world. You realize that the greatest enemy on these long voyages is not the Royal Navy, nor the storms at sea, but the soul-crushing boredom of endless ocean. As you settle into the routine, you begin observing the men more closely. The captain is respected, his orders followed during battle. Yet in daily life, it is the quartermaster whom the crew truly listens to. He resolves disputes, distributes rations, and holds the real balance of power aboard the ship. As the weeks pass, you begin to understand the answer to the question that has been forming in your mind. How does a ship full of outlaws govern itself? You now see that leadership is not concentrated in a single man, but divided between two figures, forming a delicate balance designed to prevent the kind of tyranny you escaped. First, there is the captain. He is treated with respect as the ship's expert sailor and master navigator, the man who can read the waves and stars. His primary role is to guide the vessel and command it in battle. In essence, he is the ship's war chief. When a potential prize appears on the horizon, the atmosphere changes instantly. The casual, democratic air sharpens. In that moment, the captain's authority becomes absolute. Every man obeys his orders without hesitation. He decides the angle of attack, when to fire the cannons, and when to board. During a chase or battle, he is the undisputed king. In combat, there is no time for debate or votes. The crew relies entirely on his skill to win the prize and keep them alive. But here is the crucial difference. Once the battle ends, his absolute power disappears. He steps back to become a man among equals. The captain cannot order flogging for a minor insult, change the ship's course on a whim, or claim the largest portion of the captain's cabin without the crew's agreement. He was elected, and if he proves cowardly in battle or fails to secure prizes consistently, the crew can vote him out at any time and elect a new captain. The true authority in daily life, you learn, lies with the quartermaster. He is the peace chief, the crew's advocate, elected to protect their interests and ensure fairness. His responsibilities are vast. He manages the ship's stores, distributing daily rations of food and water to guarantee equality. He serves as judge and jury. Disputes between sailors are brought to him, not the captain. He hears both sides, issues a ruling, and his decisions are respected. He also administers punishments voted on by the crew, ensuring that the captain cannot wield personal vengeance. When a prize is captured, the quartermaster leads the boarding party, decides what plunder to take, and safeguards it until it can be brought to a secure port and divided. Every coin, bolt of cloth, and barrel of wine is accounted for and shared exactly according to the articles. You now see the genius of this system. It is a separation of powers born from bitter experience. One man, the captain, has the authority to lead in war. Another, the quartermaster, has the power to protect the crew in peace. This checks and balances system ensures that no single individual can hold absolute power. It is a government of the people, by the people, on a floating wooden republic of outlaws. You observe this system in action every day as the quartermaster settles a card game dispute here, distributes the daily ration of grog there. The system works because it is built on fairness. Everyone gets their share. Yet as you receive your portion of salted beef and hardtack, a new question arises. What exactly is that share? The question of what you eat and drink is one of the most fundamental parts of life aboard a pirate ship, shaping both survival and morale. You begin to understand another fundamental part of your new life, food. At first, the rations aboard the pirate ship are disappointingly similar to the grim fare of the merchant vessel you left behind. Hardtack remains the foundation of your diet, a rock-hard biscuit of flour and water, often speckled with weevils. Protein comes mainly from salted meat, either beef or pork, cured for months in brine until it is tough, chewy, and overwhelmingly salty. This is supplemented by dried peas, beans, or oatmeal, a diet designed for preservation, not pleasure. Drink is much the same. Water stored in casks quickly turns foul, so alcohol is essential. Your daily ration of grog, a mix of rum and water, becomes a treasured ritual, offering warmth and cheer and making the stale water more palatable. It is a brief escape from the monotony of life at sea. Yet here, the pirate has an advantage. Unlike a merchant ship bound by schedules, a pirate vessel answers only to itself. The captain is not in a rush to deliver cargo, giving you freedom to supplement your diet in ways unimaginable as a merchant sailor. If supplies run low, the crew might land on a small, uninhabited island. Men go ashore armed not for battle, but for hunting. You spend the day tracking wild pigs or goats through the jungle, a welcome relief from the ship's confines. The animals are brought back, and the crew builds a fire on the beach, roasting the fresh meat over a wooden grill called a boucan. The taste of fresh, unsalted meat feels like a feast for a king. At sea you fish. Lines trail from the stern, hoping to catch tuna or other large fish for the crew. The most prized catch, however, is the giant sea turtle. Plentiful in the Caribbean, easily caught while they float at the surface, and ideal for feeding the entire crew. Remarkably, a turtle can be kept alive on its back on deck for weeks. This is the pirate way, living off the sea and the land, taking what you can find. The greatest indulgence comes after a successful capture. Boarding a merchant ship, the first prize is often the pantry rather than the strongbox. While your diet is usually one of bland survival, the captured stores bring joy. Barrels of fine French wine or Spanish brandy, sacks of soft flour for baking, and precious casks of sugar may be found. Spices, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, worth a fortune, might be discovered. Even live animals, chickens clucking in coops or a pig or cow, could be among the spoils. That night, your ship becomes a floating banquet hall. The cook, usually a skilled sailor, becomes the most important man on board. The smell of roasting meat fills the air. You eat freshly baked bread instead of weevil-filled hardtack, drink stolen wine from tin mugs, and sing sea shanties with your brothers. For a few hours, you live better than any king. This is the reward, the merry life you signed up for. You are full for the first time in years. The ship is well stocked, and fresh food keeps scurvy at bay. Yet danger is ever present. A slip of a knife while working the rigging, a broken bone from a fall, or a sudden fever are constant threats. The question of what happens when a sailor is seriously injured or falls ill is a pressing one, a matter of life, death, and the solidarity of the crew. In the world you left behind, a sick sailor was often seen as a burden. Among pirates, however, the approach is different, born from a mixture of brutal necessity and surprising compassion. Most pirate ships did not have professionally trained doctors. A skilled surgeon was considered a highly valuable prize. If captured from a merchant or naval vessel, he was one of the most prized assets in an attack. The crew would do everything to persuade him to join, offering a full share of plunder and the promise of good treatment. In some cases, a surgeon might even be forced into service, as his knowledge could mean life or death for the entire crew. If no trained doctor could be found, the role often fell to the ship's carpenter, the crew member with the most relevant skills. It seems unusual at first, but the logic is practical. The most common major surgery at sea was amputation, and the carpenter knew his tools. He could make a swift, clean cut without squeamishness. On other ships, the cook might take the role, skilled with knives as he was. The medical kit was typically a captured surgeon's chest, a form of treasure in itself. Inside were saws for bone, sharp knives for flesh, probes to explore wounds, and forceps for extracting musket balls. Medicines ranged from effective to dangerously experimental. Opium-based laudanum for pain, mercury to treat venereal diseases, and various dried herbs and powders for fevers and infections. After a battle, the main deck could transform into a makeshift operating theater. Wounded men would be laid out, and the surgeon worked quickly. Cuts from swords were stitched with simple needle and thread. To stop bleeding and prevent infection in a world without antibiotics, cauterization was common, applying a red-hot iron or a dab of hot tar to the flesh. The smell of burning skin and the cries of the injured were an inevitable aftermath of combat. For limbs shattered by cannonballs or musket shots, amputation was usually the only option. Pain was numbed with rum or laudanum, and a leather strap was given to bite down on. Fellow crew members held the patient while the carpenter surgeon worked as swiftly as possible. Survival rates were low, but it was better than the certain death of gangrene. Common illnesses, fevers, dysentery, spread rapidly through the crowded, unsanitary ship. Scurvy, caused by a lack of vitamin C, was a constant threat on long voyages without fresh food. Even well-fed pirates were not immune. Yet, once again, the pirate code provided protection. Signed articles guaranteed compensation. Losing an arm, leg, or eye in service to the ship meant financial restitution. You were a brother. You would not be abandoned. This rudimentary system of medicine and insurance was a lifeline, but the best way to avoid the surgeon's knife was to avoid trouble altogether. Move efficiently across the sea, find prizes quickly, and know the way to safe ports. To achieve this, your ship needed more than strong backs and sharp swords. It required sharp minds and an understanding of the heavens. By now, you understand how the ship is governed, maintained, and how its crew is cared for. Yet all of this would mean nothing if the vessel could not find its way. In the vast, seemingly endless ocean, with no roads or landmarks, navigation was one of the most vital skills on board. A miscalculation could mean more than missing a prize. It could mean starvation, thirst, or being lost at sea forever. Responsibility for this crucial task fell to the captain, and, if the crew was fortunate, a dedicated sailing master. On your ship, the captain fulfills this role himself. He is both navigator and guide, holding the lives of everyone aboard in his calculations. His tools are simple yet ingenious. The most prized are nautical charts, not treasure maps marked with an X, but carefully drawn parchments, often stolen from captured captains. These charts show coastlines, islands, and warnings about dangerous currents or hidden reefs. While frequently inaccurate, they are the best guidance available. To determine direction, the captain relies on a magnetic compass. But direction alone is not enough. You must also know your speed. For this, he uses a chip log, a small weighted piece of wood tied to a long rope knotted at regular intervals. Thrown from the stern, the rope unspools as the ship moves. Using a small sand glass to measure time, the captain counts the knots passing through his fingers. This gives the ship's speed in knots, a measure still used today. With these tools, the navigator can determine latitude, your position north or south of the equator, by measuring the angle of the sun at noon or the North Star at night with instruments like a quadrant or astrolabe. Yet one great mystery remains unsolved: longitude, your position east or west. There was no reliable instrument to determine it. To estimate longitude, sailors used dead reckoning, a combination of skill and intuition. Starting from a known point, say Jamaica, and sailing east at 5 knots, after 24 hours they would reckon a new position, perhaps 120 nautical miles east. But it was only an educated guess. Unseen currents, storms, or minor miscalculations could grow into massive errors over time. A great navigator constantly calculates, observes, and reads nature's subtle clues. The color of the water hints at its depth. Birds circling the ship suggest nearby land. Clouds and swells whisper secrets of distant weather. It is a delicate blend of science, intuition, and experience. You watch this skill in action day after day. The horizon stretches endlessly, a line that never changes, yet it holds all your hope that the emptiness will eventually end. And now, you are no longer merely scanning for distant sails. You are searching for a prize. Suddenly, a cry rises from the crow's nest. Sail ho! The captain lifts his spyglass, confirming the sight. The tension across the ship shifts. Every man moves with quiet precision. The hunt begins. The target is a heavily laden merchant vessel, riding low in the water, the prize the crew has been waiting for. Your sloop, faster and more agile, begins the chase. As the distance closes over the next hour, you notice your ship flying the English flag, the Union Jack. This, you learn, is the first step in the hunt: deception. Flying the colors of another nation, or no flag at all, is a common pirate tactic. The goal is always the same: to approach as closely as possible without alarming the target, cutting off any avenue of escape. The merchant crew spots you, but there is no reason for alarm. They see only another English ship on the horizon. Then the time for pretense ends. You are within cannon range. Escape is impossible. On your captain's command, the false flag drops. For a moment, the mast is bare, leaving the merchant crew tense and uncertain. Then a new flag is hoisted, bundled, and ready: the Jolly Roger. The Jolly Roger is more than a symbol. It is a weapon of psychological warfare. Its message is clear and uncompromising. You learn that the term Jolly Roger doesn't refer to one single design, but to any pirate flag declaring identity. The most common is stark black. In the language of the sea, black signifies death, the opposite of the white flag of surrender. A black flag signals no quarter will be given, a warning that pirates answer to no nation and live by their own laws. Even more terrifying is the red flag, the symbol of pure rage. It promises no mercy, signaling total war. And then there are the symbols themselves. The skull and crossbones is instantly recognizable, death. Other designs carry their own threats. A skeleton holding an hourglass signals that time is running out. A bleeding heart pierced by a spear promises a slow, painful end. Calico Jack Rackham's flag featured a skull above crossed swords, while Blackbeard's depicted a skeleton toasting the devil with one hand and spearing a bleeding heart with the other. The purpose of these flags is practical. Piracy is a business. A bloody fight damages ships, wastes ammunition, and reduces the crew available to share the prize. The ideal attack leaves no one hurt. The Jolly Roger serves as an advertisement. The more fearsome the captain's reputation and the more terrifying the flag, the more likely a merchant crew will surrender without resistance. It says, "We are what you fear most. We have abandoned your laws. We do not fear death, so you should fear us. Surrender your cargo, and we may spare your lives. Resist, and you will be sent to the bottom of the sea." You watch the black flag rise to the top of the mast, unfurling in the wind. Across the water, the merchant crew faces a grim choice: surrender and hope for mercy, or fight and face the violence your flag promises. The captain of the merchant ship has chosen to fight. A puff of smoke rises from their vessel, followed by the sharp report of a small cannon. The shot falls harmlessly into the sea. Now your captain's authority becomes absolute. Every man on board moves with precision. The ship transforms into a finely tuned weapon under his command. The helmsman expertly maneuvers your sloop. This is not a chaotic head-on clash, but a deliberate tactic called crossing the T. Your ship's side faces the bow, or better yet, the stern, of the enemy vessel, allowing all your cannons on one side to unleash a devastating broadside, while the merchant ship can return only a few shots, if any. On deck, controlled chaos reigns. The quartermaster shouts orders. Gun crews work with practiced speed, loading specialized ammunition designed to disable rather than sink. Chain shot, two smaller cannonballs linked by a metal chain, spins through the air, shredding sails and rigging. Grape shot, a bag of dozens of small metal balls, transforms the cannon into a massive shotgun, clearing the enemy deck of men. Your captain waits for the perfect moment. As the swell lifts your side of the ship, he gives the command, "Fire." The world erupts. The roar of a dozen cannons shakes the deck, reverberating through your bones. Black gunpowder smoke blankets the ship, filling your mouth and nose with sulfur. For a moment, you are blind and deaf, caught in a storm of man-made chaos. When the smoke clears, the merchant ship lies crippled. Its main mast is splintered, sails in tatters, the deck in confusion. It is time for the final phase. Your helmsman brings your sloop alongside. Grappling hooks fly, biting deep into the enemy's railing. With a mighty heave, ropes are pulled taut, binding the two ships together and forming a bridge for boarding. Sharpshooters climb the rigging, rifles trained on officers attempting to rally the merchant crew. Then the quartermaster gives the command, "Boarders away." With a cry, you and a dozen other men swarm over the railing. Pistol in one hand, sword in the other. You know the pistol offers only one shot. The sword does the real work. The fighting is chaotic and desperate but brief. The merchant crew, demoralized and outnumbered, has little reason to fight to the death. Weapons are quickly surrendered, and the captain yields formally. Silence falls, broken only by groans of the wounded and the crackle of small fires. The adrenaline fades, replaced by the pungent mix of sweat, fear, and gunpowder. The prize is yours. With the captured ship's crew subdued and locked away, the adrenaline of battle gives way to a focused and surprisingly disciplined process. This is not the chaotic, grab-and-run looting you might have imagined. The quartermaster now holds complete command of the prize, and the first rule of piracy is strictly enforced. All plunder belongs to the company as a whole. Any pirate caught hiding even a single coin or trinket for personal gain before the general division faces the harshest punishment. Theft from one's own crew is the ultimate betrayal. The entire system of trust and fairness that holds the pirate brotherhood together relies on honesty at this crucial stage. The quartermaster and a small, trusted team conduct a meticulous inventory of the captured vessel. You quickly realize that plunder is rarely a chest overflowing with gold coins. The real treasure is the cargo: massive barrels of sugar or tobacco from the Americas, precious indigo dye from India, or fine silk textiles from the East. These goods are worth a fortune to the right buyer. The ship itself is a source of immense value. Its cannons, gunpowder, and cannonballs strengthen your own vessel. Sails, coils of rope, anchors, and carpentry tools are all vital naval stores, difficult to acquire on the open sea. Even the personal belongings of the captured crew and any wealthy passengers, clothes, wigs, silver buckles, and money, are added to the communal pile. Nothing is overlooked. Once the inventory is complete and all valuables transferred to your ship, you sail to a pirate-friendly port. This could be a bustling, lawless haven like Nassau in the Bahamas, or a hidden cove where shady merchants are willing to trade. Here, the quartermaster and captain convert the cargo into hard currency. When the goods have been sold, the most important ritual of pirate life begins. The entire crew assembles on deck. The quartermaster stands before you with the total sum of the profits. First, the ship's debts to its own crew are settled. The compensation fund is opened. The man who lost an eye in the last fight is called forward and given his 100 pieces of 8. The man whose arm was crippled by a musket ball receives his payment. This promise, enshrined in the articles, is always honored first. It is the bedrock of pirate society. Once the wounded have been cared for, the remaining wealth is divided among the crew according to the shares said in the articles. The quartermaster calls each man forward by name in a transparent, orderly process. The captain receives 2 shares, the quartermaster 1.5, and then it is your turn. Your single full share is counted into a heavy cloth bag. The weight of silver and gold presses in your hands. It is more money than you have ever seen in one place. More than 10 years of backbreaking labor on a merchant ship could have earned you. This moment makes it all worthwhile. The fear, the boredom, the danger, it was all for this. This bag of coins is not just wealth. It is independence, respect, and the reward of a life earned as a free man and given freely by your brothers. Your share secured, you look out at the harbor teeming with life. The long, disciplined months at sea are finally behind you. Work is done. Now comes the time for merriment. The call goes out for shore leave, and the promise of a pirate's celebration awaits. You and the rest of the crew pile into longboats and row toward the beach. The sensation of setting foot on solid ground after months of the sea's constant motion is strange and wonderful. You have arrived at a place like Nassau in the Bahamas, unofficial capital of the pirate republic. This is not a clean, orderly colonial town with cobblestone streets and government buildings. Instead, it is a chaotic, sprawling settlement of ramshackle wooden taverns, canvas tents, and hastily built huts, all crowded along the sandy shore. The air is thick with the smells of roasting meat, cheap rum, tobacco smoke, and the sweat of hundreds of unwashed bodies. There are no police, no Royal Navy patrols, no governor to enforce the law. This is a place of absolute freedom and absolute chaos. Your share of the plunder, which felt like a fortune aboard the ship, now burns a hole in your pocket. You and your crewmates head straight for the heart and soul of any pirate haven, the tavern. Inside, the noise is deafening. Pirates from a dozen different ships drink, shout, and laugh. You push your way to a rough wooden bar and trade one of your silver coins for a bottle of rum. Not the watered-down grog of the ship, but the raw, powerful spirit. The drink burns going down, but it tastes of freedom and success. You notice how quickly a pirate's money is spent. In one corner, men gamble fiercely over a barrel head. Brothers at sea who would die for one another in battle become intense rivals over dice. You watch a man lose a month's wages on a single roll, then laugh, buy another drink, and challenge someone to a new game. Life at sea has made them gamblers by nature. They live with the ever-present threat of violent death, so the idea of saving for a future they may never see seems pointless. Their philosophy is simple: live for the moment with intensity. Short life, merry life. You spend your silver on things once unimaginable at sea. Roasted pork until you are full, a soft linen shirt to replace your salt-stiffened one, a fine new pistol, and a bag of lead shot. Investments for your next fortune. For a week, life blurs into drinking, eating, gambling, and spending. The disciplined order of the ship dissolves into a riot of individual freedom. But such indulgence cannot last. Sooner or later, you reach into your pocket and find it empty. Your entire share, enough to sustain a family for a year, is gone, traded for a few fine meals, a new weapon, and a pounding headache. Just as the last of the crew runs out of money, the quartermaster calls out. The ship has been repaired and restocked with fresh water and supplies. It is time to return to sea. You stumble back into the longboat, head aching, pockets light, but with a new pistol at your belt and the memory of a wild week on shore. The chaos of the pirate haven fades behind you, replaced once again by the familiar, orderly world of the ship. You are struck by the stark contrast of your new life, a long, slow pendulum swinging between the extremes of disciplined work and riotous release. With no land in sight, the cycle begins again. With no land in sight and no ships to chase, the days at sea stretch into an endless, monotonous cycle. The work of the watch keeps your hands busy, but your mind craves distraction. Fighting off the immense boredom of the open ocean is as crucial to survival as maintaining the ship itself. This is where the culture of your new brotherhood truly reveals itself. The most common and most valued pastime is music. You are fortunate that your crew includes a fiddler, a man almost as important as the ship's carpenter. Exempt from the hardest labor, he still receives a full share of the plunder, all for his skill. In the quiet evening hours, after the day's main meal, he will sit on a coil of rope on the deck, and the sweet, mournful sound of his fiddle drifts across the water, a lonely, beautiful echo in the vast emptiness. You learn that there are two kinds of songs at sea. The first are sea shanties. These are not for entertainment, they are work songs. When a heavy sail must be hoisted or the massive anchor raised using the capstan, a lead sailor, the shantyman, sings a line. The rest of the crew, including you, roars back the chorus in unison, pulling or pushing with all your strength on the final word. The rhythmic beat coordinates dozens of men into a single, unified force, making hard labor lighter and faster. The second type of song is the forecastle ballad. The forecastle, the forward part of the upper deck, is where the crew gathers during off-watch hours. Here, a man with a good voice might sing long narrative ballads, telling stories of famous naval battles, daring pirates, lost loves, or humorous and tragic events at sea. These songs are the oral history of your world, passed from ship to ship, providing a shared culture and sense of continuity. Another way to pass the time is with games of chance. When money runs low, other stakes are used. A share of the plunder, a ration of rum, or even the shirt off your back. Small groups gather, playing card games with greasy, well-worn decks or tossing dice carved from leftover bone. Tensions can rise quickly, so the ship's articles are strict. Cheating is a serious offense, and the quartermaster often steps in to settle disputes. Perhaps the most important pastime is storytelling. In a world where most men cannot read or write, the spoken word is the primary form of entertainment and information. During the quiet hours of the night watch, crew members share stories, boasts and exaggerations of their own adventures, ghost stories of the Flying Dutchman or other phantom ships, or news from the last port. Which governors offer pardons, which pirate hunters patrol the coast, and which merchant vessels carry valuable cargo. These storytelling sessions are where legends are born. Men spin yarns to entertain, build reputations, and pass the long, dark hours. Music, games, and stories are the threads that bind the crew together, transforming a group of rough individuals into a functioning community. As you listen to another sailor recount the exploits of the great pirate Henry Morgan, you begin to imagine your own future adventures. Captains forcing enemies to walk the plank, treasure buried on deserted islands, and secret maps leading to unimaginable wealth. As you spend more time living the real life of a pirate, you begin to notice that the wild stories and legends you've heard, stories repeated even by other sailors, don't quite match your daily reality. The truth is often simpler, more practical, and in some ways far more fascinating than the myths. Let's examine 3 of the most famous legends. First, the myth of buried treasure. The image of pirates burying massive chests of gold and silver on deserted islands, marking them with secret maps, is perhaps the most enduring pirate legend. In reality, this almost never happened. Remember the pirate philosophy: live for today, for tomorrow you may hang. Money was meant to be spent immediately and wildly during shore leave, not saved for a retirement you would never see. Additionally, plunder belonged to the entire crew, divided into shares. A captain who tried to secretly bury the company's treasure would have been deposed, or more likely, killed. The pirate code demanded fair and equal division of all prizes. Why bury gold when it could be turned immediately into rum, fine clothes, and good times? The legend of buried treasure comes almost entirely from one exceptional case: Captain William Kidd. Originally a privateer, essentially a government-sanctioned pirate, Kidd was hired to attack enemy ships during wartime. When he turned to outright piracy, he became an outlaw. Knowing he was being hunted, Kidd buried some of his wealth before sailing to New York to seek a pardon. He was captured anyway, but the story of his buried treasure sparked a frenzy that, a century and a half later, inspired Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. It is this book, more than historical fact, that created the myth we know today. Second, the myth of walking the plank. The iconic image of a captive, hands tied, forced off a narrow board into shark-infested waters is almost entirely fiction. There are virtually no reliable accounts of this during the golden age of piracy. Later writers, especially in the 19th century, popularized it, with J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan cementing the idea in popular culture. Pirates were brutal, yes, but practical. If they wanted to dispose of an enemy, a sword thrust or pistol shot was faster and more certain. The elaborate ritual of walking the plank was theatrical invention, not a standard practice. Finally, the image of the pirate captain with a colorful parrot on his shoulder. Like buried treasure, this legend originates largely from Treasure Island and its memorable character Long John Silver, who had a parrot named Captain Flint. While it's possible a few sailors acquired exotic pets in the tropics, it was not standard. A noisy, squawking bird would be a terrible companion during stealthy approaches or chaotic battles. The parrot is a romantic image, not historical reality. You now see the truth more clearly. Your life is not one of treasure maps and talking birds. It is a life governed by democratic articles, a surprising system of compensation for the wounded, and a practical approach to the dangerous business you've joined. Yet there is a growing unease. This unique world of floating republics of outlaws cannot last forever. The great empires of Europe will not tolerate it indefinitely. As you sail the seas, whispers from port towns reach your ears, rumors of a changing tide. Governors are offering fewer pardons and higher bounties for captured pirates. Powerful warships are being dispatched from England with a single mission: to hunt and destroy. The rumors are true. A change is coming. The winds are changing. The great empires of the world, England, Spain, and France, are finally turning their full attention toward you. For years, they were too busy fighting each other to properly police the seas, which allowed the golden age of piracy to flourish. But now, treaties have been signed, and their powerful navies, no longer needed for massive fleet battles, have been given a new target: you. The authorities begin their campaign with a simple but effective strategy, offering a carrot before they use the stick. This carrot is the King's Pardon. An official proclamation from London offers a full pardon to any pirate who surrenders to a colonial governor before a specified date. It promises that all crimes will be forgiven and that you can return to society as a free man, without the shadow of the gallows following you. The pardon creates a deep rift within the pirate brotherhood. For older pirates, tired of constant risk and hardship, it is a chance to exit, take their earnings, and live out their days in peace. Many, like Benjamin Hornigold, once a mentor to Blackbeard, accept the offer, but others see it as a trick. They do not trust the government's promises and view surrender as a betrayal of the freedom they fought so hard to win. The unity of the pirate havens begins to crack. Then comes the stick. When pardons are not enough, the empires unleash their full military might. Powerful Royal Navy warships patrol the Caribbean and the American coast. These are not the slow, clumsy merchant vessels you are used to capturing. These are frigates, fast, medium-sized warships built for speed, packed with cannons, captained by experienced officers, and manned by disciplined Marines trained for combat. Your pirate crew, so effective against a merchantman, is no match for the raw power of a naval frigate. Along with the warships come determined new governors, sent specifically to eradicate piracy. Woodes Rogers, a famous former privateer who understands your world, is appointed governor of the Bahamas. He sails directly into the heart of your republic, the pirate haven of Nassau, with several warships at his back. He arrives with the king's pardon in one hand and the threat of overwhelming force in the other, a brilliant combination of carrot and stick. Other governors, like Alexander Spotswood of Virginia, become obsessed with the hunt. Spotswood dedicates his resources to capturing the infamous Blackbeard, sending naval ships and soldiers on daring raids, sometimes even outside his legal jurisdiction. Perhaps the most bitter pill for pirates is the use of former pirates to hunt their own kind. Some of the most effective pirate hunters are men who accepted the pardon, like Benjamin Hornigold, who know all the secret coves, tactics, and weaknesses of their former brothers. The Brotherhood is now not just divided. It is actively preying upon itself. You feel the world closing in. Your options are dwindling. The freedom you fought for slips through your fingers like sand. The final act of the Golden Age has begun. For every pirate still sailing under the black flag, the most pressing question is no longer, where is the next prize? But, how does my story end? The Golden Age of piracy, for all its fire and fury, was a remarkably brief flash in history. For every man who joined the Brotherhood, the unspoken question always loomed. How would it end? There was no single path. The end of a pirate's career could take many forms, ranging from the swift and violent to the public and shameful, or even the surprisingly quiet. For many, the end came exactly as they had lived, in a flurry of black powder, cannon smoke, and drawn steel. To die in battle was a constant and accepted risk of the trade. In a desperate fight against a naval vessel or heavily armed merchantman, a pirate could be killed in an instant, struck by a musket ball, cut down in a sword fight on a crowded deck, or sent flying by the terrible spray of wooden splinters from a cannonball impact. The infamous Blackbeard, perhaps the most feared pirate of his time, met his end this way, killed in a bloody close-quarters battle with naval Lieutenant Robert Maynard and his crew. For some pirates, this soldier's death may have been preferable to the shame of the gallows, a final defiant act in a life lived on the edge. Another fate, even more public and brutal, was the gallows. Pirates finally outmatched and captured by the Royal Navy would be put in chains and transported to a major colonial port like Port Royal in Jamaica. There, they would stand trial in a special admiralty court, a maritime court with no jury of their peers. For a known pirate, the trial was a mere formality. The sentence was death by hanging. The execution itself was a powerful public spectacle, drawing large crowds to witness the final moments of these infamous outlaws, a grim warning to any sailor tempted by piracy. To make the message last, the bodies of the most notorious captains were sometimes placed in iron cages called gibbets and left to hang at the harbor entrance. A more unique fate came not from the outside world, but from a pirate's own brothers. For crimes against the crew, the punishment could be exile or marooning. The offender would be taken to a deserted island with only the most basic provisions, a flask of water, a knife, and sometimes a pistol with a single shot. The crew would row away, leaving him to a quiet, desperate battle against the elements. While survival was not impossible, for most, it was a sentence of profound and final solitude. But for every pirate who met a dramatic end, many more simply walked away. This was the path of the king's pardon. Faced with the growing threat of naval patrols, many crews chose to accept the official amnesty. They would sail into a colonial port, swear allegiance to the crown, and in an instant, their life of crime was forgiven. These thousands of former pirates melted back into the world, returning to ordinary lives. For this silent majority, the golden age of piracy was not a fight to the death, but a single wild chapter in otherwise ordinary lives. And what of the pirate's ultimate dream, the quiet retirement with a fabulous fortune? This was the stuff of legend, and for good reason. It was nearly impossible to achieve. The pirate ethos of living for today meant very few ever managed to save a fortune. Tales of pirates like Henry Every, who supposedly vanished with his treasure to live as a king in a secret paradise, are likely just stories, fuel for the dreams of other sailors. Thus, these were the fates that awaited them: a swift death in battle, the public shame of the gallows, the lonely exile of marooning, the quiet escape of the pardon, or the nearly impossible dream of a legendary retirement. With the historical pirates gone from the seas, their reality began to fade. The memory of brutal working conditions, monotonous diets, and constant fear was gradually replaced by something far more romantic and enduring. This transformation from history into legend began almost immediately, thanks in large part to one incredibly popular book. In 1724, while some of the last pirates were still being hunted, a book was published in London called A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates. It was written under the name Captain Charles Johnson, though his true identity remains a mystery to this day. The book was an instant sensation. It was part history, containing surprisingly accurate details about pirate articles, ships, and daily life, likely gathered from interviews with sailors and trial reports. But it was also part sensational drama. Johnson was a brilliant storyteller, taking the known facts about pirates like Blackbeard, Calico Jack Rackham, and the famous female pirates and Bonnie and Mary Red, and crafting them into compelling, larger-than-life characters. He solidified their legends, creating the definitive versions of their stories that still influence our imagination today. This book was the first crucial step in shaping the modern image of pirates. It organized the chaotic history of piracy into a collection of thrilling biographies. For over a century, this was how the world saw pirates, brutal but fascinating figures. In the late 19th century, a second, even more influential author took up the torch. The Scottish writer Robert Louis Stevenson, looking for an adventure story to write for his stepson, drew upon the legends from Johnson's book and created his masterpiece, Treasure Island, published in 1883. This novel, more than any other work, is responsible for creating the modern myth of the pirate. Stevenson took the single rare historical case of Captain Kidd burying his treasure and made it the central goal of all piracy. The idea of a secret map with an X marking the spot is a pure invention of Treasure Island. Stevenson's most brilliant creation was the character of Long John Silver, the charismatic, one-legged ship's cook with a parrot named Captain Flint on his shoulder. Long John Silver became the archetype for every fictional pirate that followed, cementing the idea of the charming, friendly but treacherous pirate rogue, the talking parrot, the treasure map, and moral ambiguity. The final step in the transformation came in the 20th century with the rise of cinema. Hollywood brought the romantic adventure of Treasure Island to life. Actors like Errol Flynn in the 1930s and 40s created the image of the swashbuckler, the handsome, acrobatic hero who fights with a sword, swings on ropes, and always wins the heart of a beautiful lady. Pirates were no longer dangerous outlaws. They were dashing heroes. This brings us to the pirate we know today, a direct descendant of Long John Silver and Errol Flynn, Captain Jack Sparrow from the Pirates of the Caribbean films. He is the complete package of the romantic myth, charming, witty, and a master swordsman, living a life of pure freedom and adventure. Thus, the transformation is complete. The historical reality of desperate, often miserable sailors who chose a short, brutal life out of necessity has been replaced by the fictional ideal of the free-spirited adventurer. The real pirates may have ruled the seas for only a brief and violent generation, but their legend, the powerful story of ultimate freedom, rebellion, and a life without rules, has proven immortal. It is a story we continue to tell ourselves, perhaps because some small part of us still longs for a world with a blank space on the map marked with an X. Thank you for joining me on this long journey. From the harsh realities of a sailor's life to the birth of a timeless legend, our voyage through history is now at an end. May you have a calm and peaceful night.